All right, welcome back. Well, yes, we'll speak to some of those figures, but my colleague did ask Laolu Akande from 1999 till date, because don't forget, he was in the media, still is in the media, even though he's doing some other job now. So maybe we should just get him to respond to that. Laolu, could you go ahead and talk to us now? What has changed for you from that time till date?
Thank you. It's the fact that the Nigerian people have gotten the opportunity for up to 2 decades now to fashion out their desired destiny for our own country. So we no longer have the excuse of being under military tyranny, under which we were for quite a long time. I was a journalist myself in June 12, 1993, reporting for the news magazine, fighting military dictatorship. So I think the most important thing is that we have gotten the opportunity as a people to determine what it is that we want to make about our own lives.
But over the past 21 years, between 1999 and now, straight democracy, the longest of it you would know as a media person. Within 1999 and now 2020, what has changed?
Well, so we have been able to, like I said, to establish what is becoming, a political culture of owning the process. So you have Nigerians who are in power, whether it's at the federal, state, local government level, whether it's in the legislature, or even the kind of leadership that we have been able to throw up in the executive. For instance, now, I can tell you very easily that we have the kind of leadership in government that takes the interest of the people very, very seriously. A leadership that is committed to public integrity and trust. A leadership that listens to what the people are saying and try to deliver on the major need of the people. I think this is what Nigerians expect and what we have been able to deliver in the last 5 years. Essentially, I'm saying that Nigerians deserve the fact that they are the ones in the driving wheel of the destiny of their country. And this is what is happening.
Right. Before we switch to the economic angle, which is a big deal, earlier on you said that Nigerians have been able to figure out what it is they want to do with their lives. And, sometimes you might have a perspective, the people have another perspective. So I'd like to know, from your perspective, what it is you think that Nigerians want to do with their lives for you to have made that statement.
All right, so let me be more specific about it. Democracy is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. It means, for instance, that we have to dedicate the resources of government to the welfare of the people. Now, which is why in the last 5 years, the Buhari administration has said, look, we have to start to put the resources, like the social investment program, where the president said, look, we have to plan to put money in the hands of Nigerians, many of them who are jobless. So we created the Empower program, where today we have over 500,000 otherwise unemployed graduates engaged. We started the conditional cash transfer, where we are now giving to 5,000 a month to more than 1 million very poor Nigerians. We have the homegrown school feeding program, where we are also serving 1 hot meal a day free for pupils. About 9 to 10 million of them. We have different credit facilities for small businesses. The point is that the resources of Nigeria, for the first time, as a matter of fact, in Nigeria's history, is being spent on the Nigerian people. That's the example of what I mean when I say the Nigerian people are the ones that are, the expectation of democracy is that we are the ones that are in charge of what is happening in our country. That's just one example, if I may.
Okay, well, let's get to Mr. Wani. He has been researching, and of course, he's a researcher and an economic person as well. Mr. Wani, Now, he's talked about the last 5 years of this government, how they've spent monies on the people, according to him, trying to ensure that people get what they want and make their lives better. From the figures, tell us about the figures you've seen, if they reflect what he's talking about.
Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, from my end, I couldn't hear anything he was saying, probably because of network disruption. So I'll just be talking blindly into his own presentation, But from the analysis or from the data we try to put together, it is very clear that the present administration have taken several efforts to actually do the right thing, get the economy working and achieve some of their set targets. No doubt about that. And we can keep on counting some of these efforts as we remember them. But the day we are is a day where you don't just look at effort, but you look at result and outcome. Because that result and outcome is what defines the benefit to Nigerians. It's what defines our quality of life, and all of those things. And you go out and ask an average Nigerian, over the last 10 years, over the last 5 years, is your life better or is your life worse? The evidence is very, very clear. And this is not to put blame on anybody or any administration. This is what the data is saying, that Nigerians are largely poorer. And this figure and this message have been well canvassed all over the places for the past 1 or 2 years. The GDP is not strong. For a country as big as we are, with all the potentials, and we want to go to where we want to go, double-digit growth is what we'll be talking about. Not 1%, not 2%. We are sliding that, but we should be talking about 2% because bigger economies are growing at 5%, at 10%. China is where they are today because they grew at 10% plus for a long period of time that started translating into from economic growth to economic development. And it's good we still give government some credit. The ease of doing business when they came to office was 170, I think, in 2015, and today we're looking at 131. 131, the World Bank ease of doing business indicator. And it's there in a green arrow, So good job from the office of the Vice President and the PayBack, driven some of these things, though we are beginning to hear less of their work now, and I hope they look at that. But again, what is the target? The target is that by now we should be number 100 in that ranking. We are number 131. So there is still a negative variance from the target they set for themselves. I spoke about power supply. The target they set for themselves is 10,000 today. We are doing 4,000. The supply is not even 4,000, the distribution. We're looking at corruption, 2000 and a corruption index, corruption ranking, 2015. We are number 130 or 131, 136, sorry. Today we are number 146, and this is an area that we actually canvassed and everything. What are we doing wrong? This should not is not to pass blame, but how do we move forward and move forward well and begin to realize some of these objectives? The payback I did a good job. A lot of executive order. Executive order 1 to 7. Let me even talk about the first executive order that said, hey, the Nigerian port will now work 24 hours. No more traffic on Apapa Tinkan Road. The people working there have to wear badges, and the same thing with airport. Some little improvement, but again, after a while, we still slide there. Today, trading across border, which measures the efficiency of our port, is still about 181 out of 185 countries in the ease of doing business ranking. We've not done well there, and that is the gateway to the country in terms of non-oil products or non-oil economy and diversification that the ELGP, Economic Recovery and Growth Plan of this administration, was anchored on in 2017. So a whole lot of indicators. I don't want to talk about exchange rate that was 199 or 197 in 2015. That is now around 380. And if you go to the ordinary road or the parallel market, you could get it at 440, 450 as the case were. You speak about inflation. You speak about unemployment, 8%, 2015. Today, the last data we saw was in 2018 July at 23%. If you look at it, I'm sure it should be up to 30% today. So some of this data, quality of life data, social data, economic data is not speaking well. And I'm not the author of those data. Our own is just to pick it, put it.
Of issues now, and I think it's only apt for Mr. Laolu Akande to respond to some of these issues. Mr. Akande, one of the things that you would, pick from what he said is that all of the indices that he has indicated, he tried to derive some of the goals from the ERGP, and that, even though we have made marginal improvement, is not even as much, as strong as even government intended.
Well, thank you. Let's talk about the data, and I'll just give one example. In agriculture, we have what we call the Anchor Borrowers Program, and this is an example of where the lives of Nigerians have been practically impacted. 200 billion has been given out to over 1.5 million farmers who are into 16 different commodities. That has dramatically changed their own lives, and it has changed the agricultural economy, if you can say that, significantly, for the first time in the history of this country. We have 10 new rice mills that have been built in the last 3 to 4 years. We have more than $1 billion private sector investment in rice and wheat. We have 22 fertilizer plants resuscitated in the last 4 years. If you want to talk about the data, the question is, where are you looking at? And we are not saying that there is no room for improvement in all the areas, be it in power, be it even in the PEBEC reforms that we have started. But I like the fact that Brother Vincent himself conceded to the fact that, very sincere and diligent efforts are being made to change the circumstances. We brought down the price of fertilizer, with the resuscitation of over 22 blending plants across the country. We brought down the price from $11,000 per bag. We brought it down to about $5,500. So there are areas where impact have been made significantly. I talked about the social investment program. Before we came in, there was no social safety net program in this country. There's never been. The Buhari administration, for the first time.
All these are lofty. So now all these are lofty. There is no doubt. Just one moment, Mr. Akande. All these are lofty. There is no doubt. And of course, it would seem like you both gentlemen are speaking about two different things. He's looking at the macroeconomic issues. You seem to be looking at the microeconomic issues. But I would like you to speak to, if you do not mind, that slide, the summary of the slide that he brought about Buhari's 5 years in office, where he had some of those indices, the GDP growth, unemployment rate, external reserve, corruption rank. He had all of these. Is there any way you would like to speak to any of these indices, just to maybe punch holes, if you like to say, in some of the things that he has said or the claims in this slide?
No. What I would rather do is to concede that there is room for improvement, and that is not debatable at all. But I think the more important thing is to remind ourselves of exactly what has changed, is to point to the lives that have been impacted, is to tell ourselves that for the first time in the history of this country, you have a government that insists that when we do budgeting, we have to do budgeting that touches the life of people. We have a government that says, look, it's time for us to spend more money on infrastructure. So for the first time I imagine, about 20 years since we have democracy, we have 30% of the budget going to infrastructure. Now, I did say that Mr. Vincent has made important points, that is notable, but we cannot deny the impact that we are making. And the fact, as he considered, that even on these issues, we are in the right direction. You know, this is what is important. This is what is important. It's not a debate. It's to say what has happened to Nigerians and what is this government doing to impact positively the life of our people. And there are huge testimonies all across the place of what is happening. Look at what is happening in technology, how we have been able to bring more resources and to inspire Nigerians to realize their own ambition. Look at how bigger the technology sector is increasing, even in our gross domestic product. So I do agree with him that we have room to improve, and this is what government is all about, to see the areas that we need to touch on. What can we do better? You know, I mean, he talked about the business environment reforms, where for the first time, you know, twice in the World Bank rankings, they have said, the World Bank, this is the World Bank, they said that the Nigerian economy, you know, is among the 10 best economies in the world in the area of reforms. It's the World Bank that said it. We did say that twice in the last 5 years. This is what the World Bank said. And of course, as he said, we have also moved up in the ranking of the ease of doing business. So the point that we are making here is that let us focus on the fact that, yes, you know, there are improvements, but the Buhari administration is taking this country on a right path. The direction that we are going is the direction that we should be going.
You know, when you talk about this journey, a lot of people are of the opinion that we're taking on a lot of load in terms of debt. And let me take on Mr. Nwani before we get you to respond to that regarding debt, our debt profile. Just yesterday, the National Assembly considered a request for $5.5 billion loan. Before that, there was about over $20 billion loan that was considered also. And the concern for a lot of people is, yes, this is a journey, but they're worried that we're probably taking on too much. And if you look at our vehicle profile, they're thinking maybe, just maybe, this load might be too much for the journey. But you have the figures. What do you think about it?
Thank you very much for the question. I think putting myself in the position of the people approving this loan, I'm sure inside their room, their sitting room, they're even worried, but they will not say it in public. You know, because you run a country the way you run a company. You know, if you are actually the one that will be responsible to pay back some of these debts you're taking, will you be taking it like this when you have other options? See, the Nigerian debt profile from 2015 was about a little bit over 12 billion, was a little bit over 12 trillion, you know, and today we're talking about something above 27 trillion. You know, it has grown over 100% in 5 years, well over 100%. So the growth is too steepy, you know, and it's not bad to borrow. Make no mistake, it's not bad to borrow. You know, Ricardian equivalence in the theoretical economy said that if you must borrow, it's nice, but use it to provide facilities such that the future generation that are going to pay back this debt will enjoy and be able to pay. But that is not the case. You look around, you also doesn't see visible reason why we have borrowed well over 100%, why we have added more debt over 100% for the past 5 years, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of quality of life, in terms of schools, you know, in terms of hospitals and everything. We're talking about COVID-19 now. The situation, and when you talk, they'll say, our debt to GDP is one of the lowest in the world. Great. But when you look at debt to GDP, you look at debt to revenue, you look at debt service to revenue, debt service at 45% to 60% of all the money you're able to generate is tough. Where a household or a company is going to use 45% to 60% of all the revenue they can generate with their potential to pay back the debt they borrowed before, that was no use for something very visible. It's worrisome, and that is what we're talking about. And the unfortunate thing is that there are other alternatives. There are other alternatives. We are not doing some things enough to open up our economy, you know. And remember that FDI follows reform. It follows the path of reforms. You know, when we did the Nigerian telecom industry reform, a lot of FDI that followed it. You know,
we'll get Mr. Akande to respond, but then you also speak about the alternatives, possibly in conclusion when we come back for both of you. Please stay with us. Well, let's get Laolu to respond to some of the concerns that has been raised about the debt profile. He compared the debt to the GDP. So, Laolu, give us your concluding thoughts on some of those perspectives.
Chamberlain, so a few things. Number one, we have tried to reduce borrowing costs, quite significantly. So for instance, we are doing more of domestic borrowing, and the cost of that is going down. And then a lot of these loans are, concessionary loans. Then we are also working very hard to raise revenues. It is said that there are a lot of options. I mean, for us, every option is on the table. But it's also important to understand that we actually have savings, from Forex. For instance, we used to spend hundreds of millions of dollars importing rice. That has come down significantly, so there is important savings that is also happening. But the most important point about those borrowing is that these are funds that we're using for infrastructural projects that we need. The truth of the matter is that while I agree with him that we should look at all options, which we are doing, you cannot doubt the fact that borrowing is an active option that you got to use. So we have a huge infrastructural deficit in this country, whether it's in roads or power or rail or housing. It's just all over the place. And we said, look, we want to spend, we have been spending 30% of the budget on infrastructure, which wasn't the case. Other government spends as less as 10% at times. So in order to further encourage that determination to improve the infrastructure projects, we need to raise loans to be able to get these funds on time. And like I said, many of them are concessionary. So today, we know that the Lagos-Ibadan rail project has advanced very significantly. I think by this year it will be completed. We have the Ajaokuta Itakpe rail. We have the Abuja Metro line. We have the Abuja Kaduna rail. All of these are already in place, and there are other significant infrastructural projects across
Mr. Akande.
That is the reason why we need these funds.
I need to bring in Mr. Wani to give his concluding perspectives as well. Mr. Wani, what should we be doing moving forward?
It's a thing just when that we cannot borrow our way out of this crisis. Even if we decide to go and borrow $100 billion, it cannot solve the problem. Let's reform. And this government came in with this poster of reform. Let's reform, sectoral reform. Political reforms is what we need. See, foreign direct investment follows reform. It follows reform. Let's reform our power sector. Let's reform our infrastructure sector. Let's incentivize PPP to happen in the oil industry. $100 billion was lost over the last 5 years due to non-passage of the PIBP. Let's reform the NNPC from being a regulator and an operator to something else, like everybody is doing in the world. Aramco of Saudi Arabia raised over $100 billion just by selling 5% of the equity last year. Within 2 weeks, we can do so. Let's leverage on the example we saw with NLNG and replicate it across board. Reform is the answer, through which FDI will come in, investment will come in, and we stop borrowing to save a future generation in this country.
All right, Mr. Vincent Wani, a business and investment consultant, as well as Laolu Akande, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the Vice President on Media and Publicity. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. And, well, we can't say Happy Democracy Day now. It's going to be June 12th, so...
have a great day.
Well, that's what we'll have to say, because we will do our best to have a great day, no matter the circumstance. Yeah. And I would think you should as well. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Kayode Kikiolu.
I'm Ayo Makide. Have a wonderful day.